Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Pet Behavior Chat. And I'm so excited to welcome Ilse with us today. So Ilse Fourie, who works really closely with me at the German Veterinary Clinic and at Trinity Behaviour. And I can't even pronounce all of your letters and all of your qualifications. There are so many of them. So lovely to have you with us, Ilse. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm good. Thanks. Yeah.
Cool. So we have a couple of little topics that we want to chat about today. And obviously one of the big things is how the two of us work together. So how a veterinary behaviorist and a trainer / behavior modification expert, how we both work together. But why don't you get us started just by telling us a bit about how you started working with dogs and what your sort of career progression was from there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from South Africa, from Cape Town, South Africa. And I initially got involved with dogs via my own dogs. And I started clicker training, I don't know, over a decade ago with my own dogs. And then from there, I did psychology as my second major during university. So I got my master's in art and my second major was psychology. And I, always been very fascinated with behavior in general. And then I actually really got into the behavior and training side of things more full time. After I got my current little dog, Bentley, back in 2016, I was facing some real, challenges with him and my other dog, Rocco. And from there, I studied at the Centre of Applied Pet Ethology based in the UK. So that's COAPE. They're now COAPE International. And I got my certificate in companion animal behavior. And then from there, I did my diploma in companion animal behavior. I did a whole bunch of Karen Pryor clicker training courses. And then from about 2017, I really went full time into doing it. I worked at a boarding and training center in Stellenbosch, South Africa called Zimzala. They're still going and they're really amazing. And I ran obedience classes there, canine good citizen classes, did some behavior modification work, but it was predominantly, kind of your more traditional, puppy classes, that kind of thing. And then I also ran some of my own classes closer to where my house was back in South Africa. So, yeah. So, and then from there, I was, thrilled when you and Nora, operations manager, reached out back in end 2020, the height of COVID. Can you believe it? And and I mean, we had our interview, and from there came over to join you guys. So it's been quite a quite amazing, I must say.
It's quite a journey, isn't it? And isn't it funny how so many of us get started in behavior because of our own animals? I think that's such a common story, isn't it? I think that when you sort of start to kind of realize what that sort of everyday life looks like with pets, especially pets that are a little bit sensitive or that maybe do have behavioral challenges, I think many a trainer's journey has started because of an own dog, I think.
No, definitely. It was really with him, it was really a very strong shift more to kind of away from the operant, so to speak, really looking at what is happening emotionally with him, the Centre of Applied Pet Ethology there, the whole, essentially everything we get taught, the basis is Jacques Panksepp. So the affected neuroscience. So, everything is emotion. And that really changed my relationship, not only with my own dogs, but with actually the dogs that I was, training at the same time and the classes that I ran. And it really shifted my understanding and my focus and patience, to be honest, as well. So it was really incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So chat us through a little bit like what your daily life looks like now. So obviously you moved over and joined the team, my team at German Veterinary Clinic and now Trinity Veterinary Behaviour as well.
Yeah.
And so what does your kind of day-to-day look like, and how is it different from what you used to do when you were in South Africa?
So quite radically different in a good way. It's hard for me to say day to day because every day is so different, to be completely honest. But kind of if I can kind of, put it in a nutshell, it is, of course, working cases with you. So either we'll see a initial consultation, or if it is a patient that you and I have already seen together, then I work with them with the behavior modification. So, go into their homes, do sessions at their homes, depending on where the progress is of that patient. If I'm not doing the behavior consultants and the behavior modification sessions, then I'm either doing puppy life skills. So we've got quite a lot of puppies here, and our life skills. And again, that also came from the learning, and also from, in South Africa, the puppy classes that I ran there was very much, 15 puppies and very much, sit down, stay, all those kind of things. Where here the shift is very much more about life skills and teaching the owners more than anything else, how does their puppy, develop into emotional and behavioral resilience for a country like, Abu Dhabi and beyond, because, we don't know, because it's such a large expat population, chances are that they will need to travel again with their puppies, or when their puppy becomes a dog. So the shift is very much, it's not a curriculum, so to say, like what I had before. Here it's very much tailored to what that family needs. Of course, there are certain skills, like resting, calm work, confidence, building connection with their puppy. That's very important. But, everyone does still have their kind of expectations, and being realistic with the owners in terms of what they can and can expect, and how to best get that puppy to fit into their lifestyle and their needs, and vice versa. And then if not that, then I do have a couple of, we kind of just refer to them as the training clients. So they are dogs that we might not see you and I together. That is also, again, a little bit more focused on life skills, or if they have a challenge such as, dogs pulling on the lead, or, something that's a little bit more that you can work with them from a positive reinforcement side, more from an operant side. I do that as well. Then also in the clinic, of course, which I really enjoy. So what's so amazing is to have the exposure, which I've never had before in South Africa, is to actually work with vets, with veterinary nurses, be in consults with them, teaching them, reading the dog's body language, handling skills, giving owners advice in terms of how can they better prepare their dogs, or if they've got any, specific challenges around husbandry, how we can help them. And then sometimes, we will have a very anxious dog patient in, post-op, and they need that kind of extra comfort, or they're just worried about the world. So, I'm there to then, plug in and support them and support the owners. So it's quite a mixed bag. And then if it's not that, then it's also, kind of admin, like preparing lessons. I send overviews to the clients. They send videos for me to review. So, the relationship isn't, especially with the cases that you and I work with, it's not I see you for the hour every week and bye. There is that continuous support as well. And then, of course, planning. And as we know with behavior modification, you'll have a plan, and dog's not responding as you thought they would, or there's something else that crept in, and you have to kind of research and kind of put your heads together and think of different ways to do it. So, there's also that prep side of things. But like I said, every day is really quite different. And, I might have this entire plan for that session, and I get there and you can just see this dog is like, no, I know what you planned, but I'm just not feeling it. And all of a sudden, you have to, a lot of it is having to adapt, of course, to how that dog is feeling in that moment. Even in the clinic, we'll have this whole plan on how we're going to do the sedation, or how we're going to do the blood draw. And, you face with the patient in front of you, and one of the kind of positive reinforcement dog mantras is work with the dog in front of you, right? And then you kind of have to rethink on your feet, how can we redo, or not redo, how can we best change the situation to best suit the patient in that time. So it's a lot of thinking on your feet. So, and it's exciting because, like I said, it's not like every day is different. There isn't like, I think a day on the life of is a bit tricky because
every day is different.
Yeah, but overall, that's what I.
That's what you do. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, for me, it's been such a game changer having you in the clinic. And it's something that I think sort of evolved from, our sort of, I guess, when we first met, the intention was for you to work solely with me on the behavior cases and have your own training cases. But actually the difference of having a behaviorist in the clinic has been such a massive game changer. I think, it opens such doors for technicians or nurses to learn new skills and to read body language better and all that sort of thing. I mean, what do you think? Can you see that being a way forward? Like if we think about sort of the industry in the future, do you think every veterinary clinic should have a trainer or somebody who is, an expert at behavior modification or reading body language, all that kind of thing as part of their team?
I definitely think it is, with German veterinary clinic also being fear-free, and I'm also fear-free certified, but specifically a fear-free certified trainer, is that it really, I mean, I can see the difference. I know our clients, can see the difference. I know our staff have experienced the difference. It's so vital where, I can't go in and I have no idea what the medical side of the things are, right? But and the more I learn about certain conditions and certain things, obviously that, informs how that behavior is changed. Or if I know the dog is in pain, we have to, ask the vet, what do you think's going on? The vet might say, oh, I think it's an ear infection. Okay, immediately we have to change our approach to the dog because we know, okay, that area is really, really painful. I know the vet really wants to look into the ear, but it might just not be viable for that dog because it's going to be so painful. So how can we get pre-visit medication on board? How can we, do other things? So I think it makes it from a emotional welfare standpoint. I think it makes such a difference. I think because I'm walking into the same consult. The vet has got a specific agenda and they need to do a diagnosis and they need to get all this information. I know the information that they need to get, but I sometimes feel, I'm the one who has to, I'm kind of the buffer between what needs to be done, like kind of hands-on, and how the patient is feeling at that time. And it's about finding that balance and finding that compromise about how can we still do the medical job without, potentially causing trauma or more pain or emotional discomfort to that patient. And I do think I think that is extremely unique, just from a global standpoint. I think that I know there are some fear-free trainers that kind of like freelance and they come and do little seminars and stuff at veterinary clinics. But I do think having someone on the ground and involved as much as possible, it trickles down, and it kind of, I've been here now for almost 3 years, and you can see it gradually starts infiltrating into how everyone from reception to, everyone is kind of views our patients, which is really something, like I said, I think it's extremely unique. I know back at home in South Africa, there's nothing like it.
I agree. I also haven't heard of many practices that take that kind of approach. So I agree. And speaking of unique, I also think that the relationship between you and I as a veterinary behaviorist and a trainer, essentially, for want of the better word, for anybody listening, Ilse started off her career as a trainer, and I mean, we call her now a behavior modification expert. And I guess, the tools that you use are not just operant in inverted commas. We do have a lot of other strategies and tools at our disposal. But in terms of that combination of veterinary behaviorist and trainer, I'll just call it trainer. I mean, for me, and I know when I speak to my veterinary behavior colleagues, there are a couple of technicians, especially in the US, who specialize in or have taken additional qualifications in behavior. So you'll get, veterinary technicians who are certified in behavior medicine or in the behavior approach. But certainly for the rest of the world, I don't know of many veterinary behavior trainer combinations. Is that something that you've heard of amongst your colleagues, or also not so much?
Not so much. I mean, I know behavior vets. So Bobby, I can't remember her surname now. So I've, so there are trainers that again would work kind of short term with a veterinary behaviorist, or a veterinary behaviorist would refer them to a, behavior consultant, which is essentially the CBCC-KA on my little letters, but they'll do a referral. But in terms of really looking at a case and walking the journey together is very rare. I haven't seen that personally in kind of my connection. So there might be like a case here or a case there that they'll work together. But in terms of really looking bigger picture, where, I mean, you and I have had patients for what, 2.5 years, and it is very unique in the sense of actually from a behavior modification point of view, working with an actual diagnosis, working with, and having to know what the psychopharmaceuticals do, so that when I go and work with them, I know kind of where they are, what time they took it. You and I have conversations about that all the time. When things need to change, how can we, approach it? So it's really like two heads, or like two experts, looking at something holistically and what is best for that patient, rather than just kind of being on your own and kind of thinking, oh, how am I going to do this? And, even back in South Africa, you might think, oh, this dog might need, some additional support. But of course, there aren't veterinary behaviorists that side, or at least veterinary behaviorists that are board certified to work with trainers. So I think that combination is very unique, for lack of a better term. That I think that word's kind of stuck in my head now, but it is, I think, for the patient's point of view as well, because we know behavior is fluid. We know that if there's an increase or a decrease in the dosage, that's going to have an impact. You and I can see, okay, hang on, things aren't changing the way that they potentially should be. Maybe there's an issue with, well, not an issue, maybe we need to rethink the psychopharmaceuticals. So, I think it's coming at it from a extremely, extremely specialized and very, very niche point of view, which we know has a much better prognosis. We know with the patients that you also see where we have the behavior modification tied in, the prognosis is so much better than the ones that would just, for example, take the psychopharmaceuticals and not work with specific behavior modification plan, or like a specific plan.
Which is obviously something we don't recommend. I mean, we always recommend that psychopharmaceuticals are always used in combination with a behavior modification plan. So for everyone listening, just so you can get a bit of a picture of what that actually looks like when Ilse and I work together. So when we see our in-person consultations, so when we have dogs coming to the clinic, Ilse and I actually both sit in together on the initial consultation. I will usually take the lead on those consultations. However, it gives Ilse a really great opportunity to observe the dog, see the dog, look at body language, look at the interactions between the dog and the pet parent, for example, and also look at perhaps, how good they are at cognitive processing in that situation. So, if the dog is open to it, she might do a few little, nose targets or something during the consultation to see what the dog's cognitive processing is like. And I think the other really big win there is that you hear everything that the client and I discuss. You understand and what's important to the client, where we put our priorities, and what our initial treatment strategy and treatment plan looks like. And then what's so amazing for me is that I can focus on the things that I guess as a veterinary behaviorist, I'm uniquely qualified to do, which is in many cases the psychopharmaceutical approach, making sure we have everything covered from a physical, medical point of view. I usually do the implementation of the kind of environmental management strategies together with Ilse. And then once the time is right and once that dog is ready, Ilse can then come in and choose from her arsenal, her toolbox of exercises and all kinds of other things, the specific exercises that are going to be valuable for that particular dog. And that varies so much, wouldn't you say, from patient to patient? And you have to,
absolutely.
Yeah, you have to be so flexible in your approach to what is going to work for that patient and what that particular patient is also going to buy into and what they're going to enjoy doing. So chat me through a little bit, like what is your approach once we've seen the cases together? Where do you go next with the patients after that?
So again, depends depends on the case, but generally, it's so in that initial session, having those clear, realistic goals with the guardian. And then, my next step is breaking up. So once, I've observed the dog, I've seen how the dog is, sometimes they might have a tumultuous learning history with that particular owner, sometimes not. So, kind of a cleaner slate, so to speak. And then from there, it really depends on the severity. So what is the kind of, where's that dog's threshold to, and where is the motivation for that emotion sitting? Sometimes we might have, the dog is chasing cats, but it might rather be a predation or a predatory, outlet rather than, the cat is scared of, the dog is scared of cats and he wants to check, or whatever the case may be, right? So it's really determining what is the motivation behind it. And then most of the time it would start off by just rebuilding or building connection and understanding between the dog and the owner. So doing lots of relationship building work, lots of soothing, calm work, because of course we know that especially the cases that you and I see, which are predominantly, anxiety, some aggression cases, but a lot of it is in the hazard avoidance behavior part of the dog's brain is that kind of self-regulation, that emotional regulation, which we know sniffing is very important. So I was very lucky that, when I joined you guys, I had the opportunity to do 2 scent work courses as part of my CPD, and actually using that as therapy and actually using sniffing and scent work and deep breathing as part of the slow thinking, as we refer to it, and the reappraisal for that dog. So really about almost, really taking it all the way back to like baby steps. Like, how does the dog feel just in the environment? How do they feel when they're just on the couch? How do they feel when they're just with the owner? Before even thinking about the trigger, before even thinking about whatever that particular kind of threat for that dog would be, is just to first make sure that the dog's overall mood state is in a better position. And a very big part of that is, of course, enrichment. So whether it's foraging enrichment, whether it's, I'm very pro, always, my first kind of homework, so to speak, I hate the word homework, but the kind of first task that I set the clients is to make a list of all the stuff that your dog really enjoys, especially if it's something that annoys you, like digging or chewing things or, eating the plants or whatever it may be. So we can have an idea of what this dog really enjoys doing, where are their behavioral needs and where are they not being met, and how can we meet them first. So really laying a very strong foundation first before we even think about, okay, let's get a dog at a kilometer away. We really just focus on that, building that connection with the owner, getting that calm, making sure that the dog just in their day-to-day is actually feeling safe. Because if they don't feel safe and they can't even appraise me lying in the kitchen, it's so much more difficult if we need to start taking it on the road. Yeah. And then, of course, a very big part of that is to ensure that there's client buy-in, so that everyone in the family is on the same page. so the education continues, so in our initial consults we do, you cover a lot of body language, cover a lot about, how the dog is feeling, and it's continuing that throughout the journey with them so that they don't, it's not just a little box that they tick and say, oh, I understand dog body language. It's also about, okay, in this situation, getting the owners to really observe their dogs, think about, the dog will do something. Why do you think, Fido did that, rather than just, how do we correct it? So, because as we know, prevention is much better. And especially if we can enrich their lives first, I think that is, enrichment is not just licky mats and Kongs. Of course, it's part of it, but, I think it is quite a cornerstone of the work that you and I do in terms of just bringing that overall emotional state kind of a little bit more down. Yeah.
I think our approach, it's a very pro-patient approach. It's always kind of patient first. And of course, the family, feeds into that. It's a very holistic approach. But I think definitely what sort of has crystallized out over the couple of years that we've been working together, it's much more of a therapeutic approach as opposed to a getting the dog to do something approach. It's like you say, it's laying the foundations for how they feel. It's making sure that they're able to feel safe and that their needs are being met from a species-specific point of view and a breed-specific point of view. And then building onto that foundation rather than trying to go in and immediately change behaviors or stop behaviors or curb behaviors, which most of the time, doesn't have really a very long-lasting effect. And doesn't work very well. So it is actually, as we're talking about it, I'm realizing just quite how unique our approach is. I mean, I know that it is, but it really is.
it really is. We it's and of course we, there are certain things, little quick wins and things that we want to give the clients, whether it's just a little, but again, within the larger framework of what we want to do. So if it's, a nose target, that's all about connection and building that understanding between, the dog and their guardian. And absolutely, I think, it is really geared towards, yes, we want the dog not to pull on, even if it's something like leash pulling. Yes, we don't want the dog to pull on leash. Kind of thinking again, I think where you and I differ is, why is the dog pulling on the leash in the first place? It's not just as simple as there's no reinforcement history. It's never that simple. And that's something that I've learned here, where before, back when I was still a baby trainer, I would be like, oh, you just need to reinforce off the loose lead. But actually thinking, okay, where is the dog pulling on lead? Why is the dog pulling on lead? What is lacking in that dog's life that is causing them to feel frustrated, causing them to feel that, and address that first, and then the reinforcement comes in. We kind of have to have that understanding, and that is really unique. Most people would be like, okay, on the leash, click treat, take one step, click treat. And yes, that is absolutely a way of doing it. But I think because you and I are so concerned with the feeling and the motivation behind the behaviors, because we're looking at it from a behavior lens. And I think that's where the big shift for me also happened, especially when I moved here, is my behavior lens has become so much more focused and bigger when it comes to training operant behaviors. Of course, we use operant, you still, again,
just losing Ilse there. So I'm gonna, I think something's happened with her Wi-Fi, so I'm just gonna fill in here. So I think it's given you a pretty good overview of how we work together. It is a very unique approach, and it's something that is, pretty new in the behavior world, and certainly also as a vet and as a veterinary behaviorist, it's a pretty unique approach. My final question to Ilse was going to be for her to share a case that she particularly loves and that has stuck in her mind. But I think we have just lost her to the ether of Wi-Fi death. I'm going to say thank you so much to Ilse. We're going to bring her in again in the future, definitely when we speak to clients, and we will continue to showcase how we kind of work together and what our combined approach is to working with behavior patients. And yeah, I think it's definitely given you a very good introduction into how a veterinary behaviorist and a trainer can work together. I know there might be a number of trainers listening, and maybe this has given you some food for thought, some inspiration, and perhaps given you, some ideas of what's out there and what can be done in the future. So yeah, I'm going to leave everybody with lots of love, and I can't wait to see you in episode 3. We're going to say thanks to Ilse, but for sure you will be hearing a lot more from Ilse going forwards. So we will see you next time. Bye-bye for now.